My name is Ethan Carter, and for 7 years, I thought I knew my wife better than anyone in the world. I knew how she took her coffee in the morning, which side of the bed she preferred, what song she always played when she was driving, and even the little expression she made whenever she was hiding something. At least, I thought I knew that expression. The truth was, my wife had been hiding something from me for months, and I was the last person to realize it. The night I finally discovered the truth, I didn't scream at her. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even ask her why. I just looked at her, took a breath and said, "Okay." She stared at me like she didn't understand, and maybe that's what scared her most. Because when someone is expecting a fight, silence can be much harder to face. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why I reacted that way, you need to know how we got there. Sophia and I met 8 years ago. I was working at an insurance company in downtown Chicago, and she worked at a coffee shop across the street. I used to go there almost every morning. First, I went because the coffee was good. Then I started going because Sophia was there. She had this habit of remembering everyone's order, even when the customer hadn't said anything. One morning, she put my coffee on the counter and said, "Large black coffee, no sugar. You're getting predictable." I laughed and asked, "Is that a bad thing?" She smiled and said, "Not necessarily." That was how it started. Nothing dramatic, no movie scene. Just two people talking over coffee until one day we realized we were spending more time together than apart. A year later, we got married. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We rented an apartment at first, then bought a small house in the suburbs. We worked hard, took a vacation once a year when we could afford it, and talked about having children someday. We had arguments, of course. Every couple does. But I never thought we had a serious problem. At least, I didn't. About 6 months before everything fell apart, Sophia started working later than usual. At first, I didn't think much of it. Her company had taken on a new client, and she told me the workload was temporary. She would come home tired, drop her bag by the door, and tell me she had spent another 12 hours at the office. I believed her. Then small things started changing. She began buying clothes she hadn't worn before. She started going to the gym regularly. She bought a new perfume even though she already had 3 bottles at home. Again, I didn't think much of it. People change. Maybe she was simply taking better care of herself. Then she started using her phone differently. Sophia had never been protective of her phone. We knew each other's passwords. If my phone was charging, she could use it. If hers was charging, I could use hers. That changed almost overnight. She started carrying it from room to room. If she was cooking, it was on the kitchen counter beside her. If she went to the bathroom, the phone went with her. If we were watching television, it was face down in her lap. I noticed it, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to become the suspicious husband who checked his wife's phone every 5 minutes. Trust mattered to me. Then, one Tuesday night, I woke up because her phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was around 2 in the morning. Sophia was asleep beside me, or at least I thought she was. The screen lit up for a second. I wasn't trying to read it, but the message preview was visible. It said, "I miss you. Tomorrow after work?" I stared at the screen. Before I could even process it, Sophia opened her eyes and reached for the phone. "Who is it?" I asked. She unlocked the phone quickly. "Nobody." I smiled because I thought she was joking. Nobody doesn't usually text at 2 in the morning. She looked at me for a second and said, "It's someone from work." "At 2 in the morning?" I asked. She sighed. "Ethan, it's not a big deal. Go back to sleep." I wanted to ask more, but something in her voice made me stop. I turned over and closed my eyes. I didn't sleep. The next morning, everything looked normal. Sophia made breakfast. She kissed me before leaving. She even reminded me that we needed to buy groceries that evening. But I noticed she kept checking her phone. At lunch, I called her. She answered after several rings. I asked how her day was going. She said it was busy. Then I heard a man's voice in the background. It wasn't clear enough to understand what he said, but Sophia immediately became nervous. "I have to go," she said. "I'll call you later." The call ended. That evening, she came home almost an hour late. I asked casually, "Long day?" She smiled and said, "You have no idea." Then she kissed me. I wanted to believe everything was normal. I really did. The next day, I asked her where she had been after work. She said she had gone to see her sister. I didn't think much of it until I remembered that her sister had called me the previous night and said she was visiting friends in another city. I looked at Sophia and said, "I thought Emma was out of town." She froze for half a second. It was tiny, but I noticed it. Then she laughed and said, "Oh, right, I forgot. I meant Sarah." I nodded. "Okay." She smiled. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I told her I wasn't. But something inside me had changed. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. One lie could have been a mistake. 2 lies could be coincidence. But now I was starting to see a pattern. A few days later, Sophia told me she had another late meeting. She got dressed carefully, put on perfume, and left around 7. I watched her car disappear down the street. I sat on the couch for almost 20 minutes, trying to convince myself not to do anything stupid. Finally, I grabbed my keys. I didn't follow her because I wanted revenge. I followed her because I needed the truth. She drove toward downtown. Then she pulled into the parking lot of a hotel. I parked across the street. She got out and looked around before walking inside. About 5 minutes later, a man arrived. He was probably in his late 30s. He was wearing a dark jacket and carrying a small bag. He walked into the hotel. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then I saw Sophia come back outside with him. They were laughing. He put his hand around her waist. She leaned toward him. Then they kissed. I didn't need to see anything else. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel. I felt angry, but underneath the anger was something worse. I felt stupid. I drove home before she did. I didn't confront her that night. When she returned around midnight, she quietly entered the bedroom. "You're awake?" she whispered. I said, "Yeah." She changed her clothes and got into bed. After a few seconds, I asked, "What's his name?" She went completely still. "Whose name?" "The man you met tonight." She didn't answer. I turned on the bedside lamp. She looked at me and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Ethan, I can explain." "Then explain." She started crying. She told me his name was Ryan. She said they had met through work. She said it started with conversations and then became something more. I asked how long. She said 6 months. 6 months. That meant the changes I had noticed hadn't been random. They had started almost exactly when the affair had started. I asked her whether she loved him. She said, "I don't know." I remember staring at her and thinking that those 4 words were worse than a confession. If she had told me she hated me, at least I would have known where I stood. But she didn't know, or maybe she didn't want to tell me. I left the bedroom and slept on the couch. The next morning I didn't go to work. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold in front of me. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about money, our house, and what else I didn't know. I checked our joint account. That's when I found something I hadn't expected. There were several transfers to an account I didn't recognize. The amounts weren't huge individually. $500 here, $800 there, $1,000 another time. But when I added them together, it was more than $20,000. I called the bank. They couldn't give me details about the other account because it was in Sophia's name, but I could see the transfers from our joint account. I called a lawyer that afternoon. He told me not to make any sudden decisions. He also told me to document everything and protect myself financially before confronting Sophia again. I followed his advice. Over the next few days, I discovered more. There were hotel charges, restaurant bills, a rental car. Then I found something that really scared me. There was an email confirmation for a 1-bedroom apartment in another city. The lease was starting in 6 weeks. Sophia wasn't just having an affair. She had been preparing another life. I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. Then I asked myself a question I didn't want to answer. Was she planning to leave me, or was she planning to take my money and leave me? I didn't know. So I decided not to confront her yet. That evening, when she came home, I acted normal. I asked how her day was. She asked if I was okay. I said I was tired. She kissed me. I almost pulled away, but I didn't. I needed to know what she was planning. A few days later, I told her that my company had offered me a temporary position in another city. It wasn't completely true, but it sounded believable. I told her I might have to leave for several months. Sophia looked surprised. Then she asked when I would leave. I told her it wasn't decided yet. She nodded and said, "Maybe it would be good for us to have some space." That sentence hurt more than I expected. We were married, and she was talking about space as if our marriage was already over. That night, I stayed awake until she fell asleep. Then I went downstairs. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I found a notebook in the drawer of her desk. Inside were dates, numbers, and notes. One date was circled. It was the same date as the large transfer from our account. The amount was $42,000. I stared at the number. I realized that wasn't money for an apartment. It was almost everything we had saved for a future home renovation. Next evening, I heard Sophia talking on the phone downstairs. I couldn't hear every word, so I stood near the staircase. She was talking to Ryan. She said, "Ethan is thinking about leaving." Ryan replied, "Then we need to do this soon." Sophia asked, "Are you sure?" Ryan said, "Of course." Then he said something that made me realize exactly what kind of man he was. "Once we have the money, we can start over." I went back upstairs without making a sound. I had my answer. The affair wasn't just emotional. There was a financial plan behind it. The next morning, I called my lawyer again. We made sure the money could not be transferred without my knowledge. I also started keeping copies of all the evidence I had legally obtained. But there was another surprise waiting for me. While researching Ryan, I discovered that he had been married twice before. Both marriages had ended badly, and there had been financial disputes involved. I kept digging. Eventually, I found a woman named Jessica, who appeared in several of his old social media photos. I contacted her. At first, she thought I was trying to scam her. Then I showed her why I was contacting her. She told me Ryan had been dating her for almost a year. She had no idea he was seeing Sophia. Jessica sent me screenshots of their conversations. Ryan had told her the same things he had told Sophia. He had promised both women a future. He had told both of them that his previous relationships had ended because his exes were crazy. He had presented himself as the victim. The more I read, the clearer it became. Ryan wasn't planning a future with Sophia. He was planning to use her, and Sophia had been so desperate to believe he loved her that she hadn't seen it. Friday finally arrived. The $42,000 transfer was scheduled that morning. Sophia woke up early. She checked her phone several times. Around 10, she received a notification. The transfer had failed. She called Ryan immediately. I couldn't hear the entire conversation, but I heard her say, "I don't know what happened." Then Ryan became angry. Later, he sent her a message that said, "If you can't get the money, don't call me." That was the moment Sophia finally understood. She wasn't his future. She was his opportunity. That evening, when she came home, I was waiting in the dining room. I had placed an envelope on the table. The name was written across the front. He picked it up and opened it. Inside were copies of the hotel reservation, bank transfers, photographs, the apartment lease, and several messages. She looked at the papers and then looked at me. "Ethan," I shook my head. "Don't lie to me anymore." She started crying. "I was going to tell you." I asked, "When?" She didn't answer. "Before you left. Before you took the money, or after you moved into the apartment?" She covered her face. I could see that she finally understood there was no story she could tell me that would make the evidence disappear. She said, "I didn't know what I was doing." I replied, "You knew enough to hide it." She said she loved Ryan. I asked, "Does he love you?" She didn't answer. The phone started ringing. "Ryan." She looked at the screen. I said, "Answer it." She hesitated. I told her again, "Answer it." She picked up. Ryan immediately asked, "Did you get the money?" Sophia began crying. I leaned toward the phone and said, "Hello, Ryan." There was silence. Then he hung up. Sophia stared at me. I told her, "That's your answer." She spent the next several minutes crying and apologizing. She told me she regretted everything. She said she had been unhappy and didn't know how to tell me. I told her that being unhappy was not the betrayal. Lying to me for 6 months was the betrayal. Planning to take our savings was the betrayal. Building another life behind my back was the betrayal. The divorce process took months. There were difficult conversations, paperwork, lawyers, and moments when I wondered if I had made the right decisions. But eventually, the house was settled, our finances were separated, and Sophia moved out. Ryan disappeared from her life shortly after the money became unavailable. Jessica ended her relationship with him too. A few months later, Sophia called me. She sounded different. She wasn't angry anymore. She asked if I hated her. I told her no. She asked why. I said, because hating you would mean you're still taking up space in my life. There was a long silence. Then she said, I really thought Ryan loved me. I replied, maybe you believed that because you wanted it to be true. She started crying. I didn't know what else to say. Before ending the call, she asked if there was any chance we could ever be friends. I told her, I don't think that's healthy for either of us. Then I said goodbye. That was the last time we spoke. A year after everything happened, I was standing in the same house where Sophia and I had once planned our future. The house was quieter now. First, I hated the silence. Then I started enjoying it. I started traveling again. I went back to the gym. I spent more time with my parents and friends. I started doing things I had stopped doing because I was always trying to make time for someone else. One evening, I found our old wedding album in a box. I opened it and looked at the photographs. There we were, standing together, smiling at the camera, completely unaware of what the future would bring. For a moment, I felt sad. Then I closed the album. I didn't destroy the photographs. I didn't burn them. I didn't need to. They were part of my past, and I had finally accepted that the past didn't need to be erased in order for me to move forward. I used to think revenge meant making someone feel the pain they had caused you. But I eventually learned that real revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about refusing to let what they did determine the rest of your life. Sophia took my trust. She took months of my peace, but she didn't get to take my future. That belonged to me. And if you're listening to my story because someone has betrayed you, I want you to remember something. You don't have to become cruel because someone treated you badly. You don't have to destroy them to prove that you were hurt. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away, protect yourself, learn the truth, and rebuild your life. Because one day, you may look back at the person who broke your heart and realize they didn't destroy your life. They simply showed you that it was time to build a different one. I closed the wedding album, put it back in the box, and walked outside. The sun was going down. I stood there for a moment, took a deep breath, and smiled. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about Sophia. I wasn't thinking about Ryan. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about tomorrow. And that was when I realized I had finally won. Not because they lost. Not because I had exposed them. Not because I had protected my money. I had won because their betrayal no longer controlled my emotions. They were part of a chapter that had ended, and I was finally ready to start the next one.